There's a stretch of road in the Midwest that truckers know by name, but never by choice. Locals call it the Devil's 11. 11 miles of cracked asphalt, cutting through dead cornfields, connecting nothing to nothing. Officially, it's Route 9, between the towns of Marrow Creek and Ashford Hollow. But if you check a map from before 1987, you won't find Ashford Hollow at all, because it isn't there anymore. This is the story of what happened to it, and what still happens on certain nights at mile marker 13. If you're driving alone tonight, maybe don't watch this one just yet. In the autumn of 1987, Ashford Hollow was a town of 412 people. It had one gas station, one diner called Peg's, and a single road in and out, Route 9. The town existed because of the highway, and in the end, the highway was the reason it stopped existing. On the night of October the 19th, a freight truck carrying industrial chemicals lost its brakes on the long decline into the valley. The driver, a man named Everett Cole, radioed a distress call that dispatchers later described as strange, not panicked, not shouting, but calm, almost conversational, saying only, "Something's already on the road with me." Seconds later, the transmission cut to static. The truck jackknifed at what is now marked as mile 13, spilling its cargo across half a mile of asphalt. What followed was officially recorded as a chemical fire. Unofficially, 3 separate survivors, a family driving home from a wedding, gave statements to police describing something that had nothing to do with fire. They said the smoke didn't rise, it moved. Low along the ground, threading between the wrecked cars like it was searching for something. Ashford Hollow was evacuated within 72 hours. The chemical company paid for relocation, sealed the site, and by the following spring, cornfields had reclaimed the empty lots where houses used to stand. Today, there's no plaque, no memorial, just 11 miles of highway that state troopers privately call the Gap, because dispatch radios lose signal there every time without fail, for reasons no engineer has ever been able to explain.
Fast forward to 2003. A rideshare. Back before rideshare apps existed, this was just a classified ad, connected a college student named Dana Whitfield with a driver heading toward Ashford for a delivery run. Dana needed a ride home for Thanksgiving break, and the timing lined up. She kept a journal. Excerpts of it later became part of a local urban legend forum thread that, as far as anyone can tell, was never taken down and never explained. According to her account, they picked up a hitchhiker just after mile marker 10. A woman, maybe mid-30s, wearing a green coat that looked decades out of fashion, standing on the shoulder with no car in sight for miles in either direction. The driver, uneasy about the empty road, almost didn't stop. But Dana insisted. It was cold, and the woman looked distressed. The woman got in without a word. She sat in the back seat and stared straight ahead. Dana tried making conversation, asked where she was headed, what her name was. The woman answered only once, in a voice Dana described as underwater, saying, "Ashford Hollow. I need to get home before dark." Dana didn't think much of it until she glanced at the woman's reflection in the window and realized something was wrong with the timing of it. The woman's lips weren't moving when the words came. They came from behind Dana, from the empty passenger seat beside her, even though the woman was clearly still sitting in the back. When they reached mile marker 13, the driver slowed automatically. An old habit truckers pass down: slow down at 13, always. And in that moment of hesitation, Dana turned around. The back seat was empty. The green coat was folded neatly on the seat, still warm, still smelling faintly of smoke. There had been no door open, no sound of anyone leaving. They didn't speak again until they crossed the county line.
In 2015, a small paranormal research group calling themselves the Heartland Anomaly Project spent 4 nights camped at mile marker 13 with EMF meters, thermal cameras, and voice recorders. Their footage, which briefly circulated online before mysteriously disappearing from every platform it was uploaded to, reportedly captured 3 things researchers still argue about. First, a temperature drop of nearly 20 degrees in under a minute, with no wind, no weather change, and no explanation from the equipment logs. Second, an EVP, an electronic voice phenomenon, recorded during a moment of total silence. When slowed down and enhanced, the voice reportedly said the same 6 words, over and over. "You're driving on top of us." Third, and the one detail that made even skeptics uncomfortable, one of the researchers' dash cams aimed at an empty stretch of road for the entire 4-night investigation captured on the final night a truck. Not a modern truck, a freight truck from the 1980s, headlights on, moving at highway speed directly toward the camera. And then, 1 frame later, gone. No skid marks, no sound on the audio track, just gone. Like it had never been there, except that every member of the team swore they felt the ground shake. The lead researcher, who asked never to be named publicly, gave one final statement before the group quietly disbanded. "We didn't find a ghost. We found a loop. Something out there is still driving that route. Still trying to finish a trip it started 30 years ago. And I don't think it knows it's not going to make it home."
Here's where the story changes, because most retellings of mile marker 13 stop at the hitchhiker or the researchers and call it a night. But there's a piece of this that almost nobody talks about, because almost nobody survived long enough to talk about it. In 2021, a rideshare driver, this time a real app-based one, picked up a fare request originating from a pin dropped directly on mile marker 13. There was no address there, no business, no house, nothing but road. The driver, a woman named Priya Andal, assumed it was a glitch, but the app kept refreshing the request over and over with increasing surge pricing until she finally accepted just to make it stop. When she arrived, there was a man standing on the shoulder, ordinary looking, baseball cap, jacket, gym bag. He got in, gave an address in Ashford Hollow, the town that again has not existed since 1987, and settled into small talk about traffic and weather, completely normal, completely unremarkable. It was only when Priya checked her rearview mirror at mile marker 13 that she noticed the dashboard clock had stopped. Not frozen, cycling backward, seconds ticking in reverse. She looked at her phone. Same thing. And in the back seat, the man was still talking, still perfectly calm, describing a dinner he was late for, a wife who'd be worried, a life he was clearly still living in his own mind. Here is the detail that separates this account from every other one. Priya didn't scream. She didn't slam the brakes. Instead, she did something almost nobody thinks to do in the moment. She asked him what year it was. He answered without hesitation, 1987. And then, and only then, he seemed to understand. His voice, still calm, dropped into something closer to grief. He asked her quietly, like a man finally waking from a very long dream, "It's not 1987 anymore, is it?" Priya said no. He nodded, like he'd already suspected. Asked her to pull over. She did. He thanked her, stepped out onto the shoulder at mile marker 13, and simply began walking into the cornfield, the way you'd walk toward a house you know is there, even in the dark. She watched him in the mirror the whole time. He never reached the tree line. He didn't fade or vanish in some cinematic flash of light. He simply got smaller and smaller, the way anyone does walking away from a car at night, except the field he was walking into wasn't more than 60 feet deep. There was a barbed wire fence at the end of it. Priya knew because she'd driven past it 100 times. He should have hit that fence in 10 steps. He never did. Now, here's the part almost no version of this story includes because it only came out after Priya filed a report, not with police, who wanted nothing to do with it, but with the same paranormal research forum the Heartland Anomaly Project once used. She mentioned, almost as an afterthought, the man's name. He'd told her early in the ride, making small talk, the way strangers do. Everett Cole. The same name as the truck driver from 1987, the one whose brakes failed, the one whose distress call ended with, "Something's already on the road with me." For 34 years, the story had assumed Everett Cole was the tragedy. The man who caused the crash, the man the town blamed, the man whose name became a local curse. But if Priya's account is real, then Everett Cole wasn't the driver anymore that night. He was a passenger in his own truck. Something else had been driving, something that made him say those final words on the radio, calm as anything, because whatever was steering wasn't afraid of the crash at all. It wanted the crash, and every version of Everett that people have picked up since. The hitchhiker in the green coat, the man in the baseball cap, isn't a ghost repeating a tragedy. It's a man trying every single time to warn someone before mile marker 13. Every ride he takes ends the exact same way. He starts realizing the truth right as the car passes mile 13, and by then, it's already too late for him to finish the warning. Nobody knows what he's trying to say, because nobody has ever asked the right question in time. Except maybe Priya, because 2 weeks after that ride, a new business permit was filed in the county for a small roadside diner, planned for construction at, of all places, mile marker 13. Public records show the applicant's name before it was quietly withdrawn without explanation. E. Cole. Route 9 is still there. You can drive it tonight if you want to. Dispatch radios still lose signal for exactly 11 miles. Truckers still slow down. Out of habit, nobody quite remembers starting, right at mile marker 13. If you ever find yourself driving that stretch after dark and someone's standing on the shoulder with no car around for miles, you don't have to stop. But if you do, and they start talking about getting home before dark, ask them what year it is. And whatever they say back, don't look in the rearview mirror until you're past mile 14. This has been Velmora Files. If this story kept you up a little later than you planned, that's exactly the point. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you on the next stretch of road.